The Trump administration is declaring victory in Minnesota after flooding the Minneapolis area with thousands of federal agents, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Minnesota residents demanding that they leave. The Trump administration is saying that Operation Metro Surge was a success. Mission accomplished, to quote George W. Bush. The state is a lot safer. But behind the scenes, things are happening much differently. The Department of Homeland Security is acting more like a media operation than it is a national security agency. Officials are staging raids for cameras, leadership is tracking television appearances, and political advisors are pushing for dramatic arrest footage. In one case, a pilot was reportedly fired because Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's blanket didn't make it on the right plane. Today, we're breaking down the end of ICE's Minnesota surge and what that chaos inside the DHS says about how immigration enforcement is actually being run. The administration just confirmed this week that Operation Metro Surge is ending. Roughly 2,000 federal agents who have been deployed to Minneapolis are now being reassigned. And the White House has framed this move as a success, saying that the operation made Minnesota safer and helped crack down on crime and undocumented immigration. Axios reported on border czar Tom Homan's own words about Operation Metro Surge, saying that while local immigration enforcement will continue, Homan said the operation has achieved the successful results we've came here for, citing over 4,000 arrests and unprecedented cooperation from local law enforcement. The Twin Cities and Minnesota in general are and will continue to be much safer for the communities here because of what we accomplished, he said. But the political reality of this was much different. These raids sparked mass protests, mobilization, and growing concerns from community leaders and civil rights groups. And inside the federal government, career officials were warning that these large, highly visible enforcement operations could backfire politically. But those warnings, according to a lot of reporting, were largely ignored because we know that what's driving these operations isn't immigration enforcement, it's optics. According to a Wall Street Journal investigation, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has leaned heavily into highly visual, high drama immigration actions. She's posed with weapons during operations, she's filmed ads encouraging people to turn in their undocumented family members, and she's prioritized television appearances and even tracked how often she appeared compared to border czar Tom Homan. At one point, Kristi Noem allegedly berated staff when he got more airtime than her. Senior White House officials have privately described the Department of Homeland Security as the biggest headache of Trump's second term. Career immigration officials warned that flashy raids designed for social media could inflame tensions and damage public trust. But we can't expect people like Kristi Noem to ail these wrongs. There's new reporting that shows that she allegedly fired a pilot over not having her blanket on the right plane. In the blanket incident, Noem had to switch planes after a maintenance issue was discovered, but her blanket wasn't moved to the second plane, according to the people familiar with the incident. The Coast Guard pilot was initially fired and told to take a commercial flight home when they reached their destination. They eventually reinstated the pilot because no one else was able to fly them home. But instead of addressing the concerns from many Trump officials that this enforcement is fueling the flames of political distrust, inside political advisors like Courier allegedly pushed for dramatic arrest footage that would play well online for far-right extremists. And when backlash came from aggressive protest videos, leadership reportedly blamed ICE officials, even though those same officials had urged a less confrontational approach. This is a pattern. Policy decisions being shaped not by operational strategy, but by what looks good on camera for an extreme right-wing base. But going back to Corey Lewandowski, he's officially classified as a special government employee, which means he's not supposed to work more than 130 days a year. But according to the Wall Street Journal, he's been deeply involved in personnel decisions, contracts, and even sensitive operational matters. The level of influence has raised concerns inside the administration because the White House counsel reportedly opened an inquiry into whether or not he was exceeding the limits of his role. Lewandowski also allegedly tried to obtain a federal badge and firearm despite having no law enforcement training. And those officials who refused his requests were often sidelined, reassigned, or placed on leave. The effort only stalled after media inquiries began. When political operatives start directing operational decisions inside a national security agency, career officials say that the line between governance and campaigns completely disappears. At the same time, the Department of Homeland Security is moving towards major funding decisions that have raised eyebrows internally. The department is acquiring a luxury 737 Boeing MAX outfitted with a private cabin for what officials describe as high profile deportations and cabinet travel. But staff has reportedly joked about this internally, especially because the Department of Homeland Security has already bought deportation planes at roughly half the cost. All of this helps explain the larger pattern in enforcement operations like Minnesota's Metro Surge. This was never about enforcement or making America safer. This was always about political strategy and media optics. And after incidents like the civilian killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, internal decisions are reportedly focused on cutting political ads to reset the secretary's image. 2 days after the incident, Lewandowski allegedly contacted the Trump campaign pollster about producing new messaging to spin the conversation away from ICE killing American civilians. Career officials are saying that this approach creates a dangerous incentive structure. Enforcement becomes content, and when operations go sour, we try to shift the conversation to designed ads for television. Public safety should not be met with polling in mind. It should always be focused on how can we make sure that danger is not present in our communities and civilians feel like their government is not actively trying to harm them. The American people clearly sees that many of our law enforcement agencies are increasingly driven by political optics. Operational decisions are shaped by media strategy, and billions of taxpayer dollars are being spent in ways that even internal staff question. Immigration enforcement is some of the largest authorities that the federal government has. It involves armed agents, detention powers, and life altering consequences for families and communities. When that power is driven by ego, people like Kristi Noem who get mad over a blanket, branding, or political performance, the question is not whether or not the system is effective. The question is, who is the system really working for?